Is it just me, or are you also trying to figure out how you feel after that press conference the other day?
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. I am also a contributor to CBS Sports, where I talk NHL and women's basketball, do a little writing from time to time. And you can also find me as your host of the Women's Hockey Report. Lots of women's hockey news. Unfortunately, not any news yet about the Seattle expansion team, but we are expecting that to come. Today's episode, I want to go back to the press conference. I posted the press conference on the Locked On Kraken YouTube page. I talked about the press conference the other day, and I just really needed a little bit more time to mull it over. So we're going to talk about that. And then your Coachella Valley Firebirds and your Kansas City Mavericks are in the playoffs. And Coachella Valley won in pretty dramatic fashion. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, if you want to hear more from the Kansas City Mavericks, including an exclusive interview with general manager and head coach Tad O'Had, check out our bonus episode dropping today. We'll close out the episode talking about USA Hockey and Men's World Championships, where a few of our familiar names and faces have made the USA roster. Woo! Okay, upon further review, I'm not liking where the Kraken are. Yet again, I find myself uncomfortable going into the offseason where we have so much to do. And it just seems like, once again, the Seattle Kraken are focused on perhaps what is not the most important priority. I want to see this Seattle Kraken restructure this roster. Or maybe more specifically, I want this Seattle Kraken organization to get on the same page. I told you in the other episode this week that Sam Holloway is saying that this is a team we want to win as soon as possible, ASAP, right? And then we're hearing from our new general manager that, we need more than, we're more than one player away from being a perennial playoff team. And so for me, what? That was a big miss for me. And I'm not the only one. Darren Brown put up a great article on the Sound of Hockey. Thoughts after Jason Botterill was officially introduced as Kraken GM on Tuesday. And not only from what Darren wrote, but then I looked at some of the comments, and there is a comment here that spoke to me at a deep level. And that is that how are we saying that this team is on the same page? The one thing that stood out to me was whilst Francis and Botterill talked pipeline, players taking the next step and building the team, Holloway answered a question about the standard and timing of success with, quote, perennial playoff team and, quote, ASAP. They didn't seem aligned on their messaging. Exactly. I'm so grateful that I'm not the only one who picked up on that. Now, I think Darren's take on, the Dan Bilesma firing, and then he compared it to Dave Haxtell. I appreciate and understand where he's coming from. I mean, the numbers were not great for Dan Bilesma. The last season was one of our worst, not the worst, but one of the worst. And it's a regression that is staggering. Absolutely. So, I can understand it from one perspective. However, I continue to come from this. If you are an everydayer and an OGer, if you listen to the show multiple times a week and have done so for multiple times over the last few years, first of all, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. If you're not already an everydayer or an OGer, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and do it. and leave a comment. We've got some comments that I'm going to get to also. But I've been saying that this organization's not on the same page. They seem very reactionary. Like that whole thing about addressing 32 thoughts. On the one hand, I can see how you do that, why you do that. But then the fact that that report came out and several months later you fire the guy who you said is quote unquote your guy. What are we doing? What are we doing? I'm so confused. That press conference left me more confused, perhaps, than I was before. And the reason I wanted to point to Darren's article is because I think he brought out something that I was maybe subconsciously thinking, but hadn't made a direct connection to. And that's also that this messaging was very much like, we're proud of this, we're exciting, we're moving in a new direction. Darren, as well as maybe one of the articles from the Seattle Times that I read, they pointed out that in this press conference, where usually we've seen this done at Kraken Community Iceplex, well, this was also done at Kraken Community Iceplex. Usually it's in the back. We're closer to the locker room. This was out front in the windows, big time situation. And the framing was the next wave of leadership. And I think rightfully so, the Kraken have been getting dinged for that phrasing, because how is this the next wave of leadership, or something refreshing and new when Botterill is still there? Ron Francis is still there. The newness, and I guess next and new are not exactly the same, but there was very much an aura, an error, an aura of, this is like exciting. This is like, we're hanging our hat on this. We're moving forward. But you're moving forward with people who were responsible for the last two head coaches that you just fired. Make it make sense. I said this the other day, but I don't mean to pick on Ron Francis, but it seems also like low-hanging fruit. I don't understand what we're doing. You talk about wanting to invest. Botterill talks so much about investing in the young players, developing the young players. He talked about Jessica Campbell and her ability to really bring out the best in young players. 2025, year of Beniers. Isn't that why we hired Dan Bilesma? And so I need to know, man, what was not happening here? And I do think that Darren broke down more of the things, and I did mention this, but he mentions that the team wasn't playing to their identity. They weren't playing that speed game. I hate to sound like, a conspiracy theorist or something, but I just don't understand what it was about Dan Bilesma that went so wrong. That went so wrong that this is where we're at. It just seems like there's this power struggle, this tension that's happening in the organization. And I'm not convinced that the organization is making the right moves here. I guess only time will tell. We got to see who the next coach, yet again, a new coach for this organization. And are they going to be any better off when the GM got promoted and the assistant GM, who worked under Ron Francis, how different is Botterill going to be? And why is it that I don't know. Is this, maybe if I think of it this way, if the reporting was true that Ron Francis didn't want to hire Dan Bilesma, is he getting promoted because it's like, okay, mea culpa, you were right, we were wrong? Is that why he's getting promoted? Or is this a way to separate him from some of the duties that are maybe not working? Am I focused too much on the Dan Bilesma thing? Or should we really be focused? And maybe that's what that press conference was trying to tell us. Maybe we should be focused on Botterill and how he can revolutionize the GM role. I just don't know. It's very curious. It seems like a team that's saying they're making these sweeping, drastic changes while also just recycling people in-house. And I suppose we'll know best when they hire a coach. But I mean, I don't really understand what's going on here. I don't really understand. And I don't know that my listeners, Darren's readers understand either. Uh, on the website Sound of Hockey, a lot of people, again, there might be some overlap here. People again mentioning the Chandler Stevenson deal. There's some people who don't like that we talk about the 7-7 with Stevenson and Montour, Stevenson in particular. Some people are like, oh, like fans and GMs, front offices are behind the curve. Here's the thing. You can say that broadly speaking, generally speaking, but when we have a former Vezina finalist who we sent down to the AHL through waivers, brought back up, and then still didn't give him starts, who we're likely going to have to buy out, I think it's absolutely fair to talk about term. And yes, price, but more so term. I saw some people saying, "Oh, well, let's not get buried in the details. If we need Chandler Stevenson for now, and then we'll just buy him out when we have some young forwards or young centermen, very specifically, that are ready to take the reins." Because the critique, and we see it in our comments as well, is that Chandler Stevenson, he's taken up a roster spot for a young buck. I think I don't like how Stevenson played this season. And if we're hanging our hat on him as a success, I don't think that's a success. Someone compared Stevenson and asked the question, is he going to be the next Grubauer contract? Where we paid too much for a guy with diminishing returns. I really hope not. It's been brutal to cover the Grubauer it's been brutal to cover Grubauer because it didn't, at first I was like, let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt. And then it was, we're overworking our goalies. We're still overworking our goalies. And then it was like, this is not a great defense. And that was true also. And we got to a point where it was like, okay, all of these things are probably still true. And Philip, you got to show up, buddy. I already feel that way about Chandler Stevenson. So I don't know. A few comments that we got from the podcast the other day. And they're kind of all over the place, but I love them. Striatic, Everyday, or OGer. I have a lot of thoughts on this press conference, which I honestly thought was a total train wreck. But the biggest thing that stuck out was the front office is really, really, really taking their young players' loyalties for granted. Now, that's interesting, Striatic. I want you to give more here. I'm under the impression that what you're talking about is they seem to really like working with Dan Bylsma. I think also the hurry up and wait of it all when it comes to development is very evident. Is that going to be different under Botterill? I'm curious. So I think I know where you're going with that, but I'd love to hear more. But the fact that you agree that it was a bit of a train wreck, yeah, I agree here. I responded, or I put a poll saying, like, what kind of coaches do you want? Let's see. We had someone say, can't have a rookie NHL head coach if the team has any hope of competing in the near future. I think either a young head coach and sell veteran pieces, acknowledging it's going to be a build, or bring in a vet coach to try to whip the vets into gear. That's really interesting. That's from Alex the Basilisk. I love that. Personally, I would favor the former, as in young head coach, sell veteran pieces, and just admit we are in a rebuild. This current roster ain't it. And that got 2 thumbs up. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what what we're gonna do here. This is a really strange situation. Someone else responding, Stephen, uh, saying, "What I still don't fully understand is the improvement in play with trades of Gord, Bjorkstrand, and Tanev." Yeah, me too. Although the return of Eberle and Dunn were certainly impactful, and the rise of Wright is hopeful. I like I liked the personalities of both Haxtell and Bilesma, but both seem to find difficulty in galvanizing this team's effort for significant stretches of the season. I do think that's fair. It's something that I talked about with Bilesma. I didn't completely understand it. I still don't completely understand it. And at the end of the day, even if we do feel, as I have felt, that there is a lot of onus that needs to be put on the players for this past season in particular, I've said it a million times, maybe not a million. I've said it several times. Heavy is the head. You pay the boss, you pay the cost to be the boss. If your team, if you're a head coach and your team isn't responding to what you and your coaching staff are doing, that's your fault. Does it suck? Absolutely. Is it true? Absolutely. And that hurts my little heart here, Kraken fans, because I wanted to see more from Bilesma. I really did. I wanted to see more from Bilesma. I don't know where he's going to land. I hope he does get another job. I just think that retrospective, and I kind of felt this way either way. Tough situation to come into, especially when my take is that the front office and the ownership group are saying things, but their actions don't align with what they're saying. And I really feel like it's more of a, we don't really know our North Star and our direction. And I hate to tell you, the next leadership, the ownership, that's not the coach's job. Not entirely. On the ice, sure. But if they're getting mixed signals from above, what do we expect? I don't want to see this happen again. I cannot even wrap my mind around the Seattle Kraken bringing in a head coach and in another 1, 2, even 3 seasons getting rid of the coach. Although 3-season average is about what the NHL tenure is, which is another freaking problem. But we can talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by FanDuel, the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, the Calder Cup finals, the Kelly Cup finals are here. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action, at least for those pro sports. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So don't miss out. Head to fanduel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Whether you're looking at NBA, whether you're looking at WNBA futures bets, we've got NHL, we've got MLB. You can find it all on FanDuel. Thanks, Seattle hockey fans, for making Locked On Kraken your part. Thanks, Seattle hockey fans, for making Locked On Kraken part of your daily destination. And you're listening to Locked On Kraken, probably your first listen, hopefully your first listen. Hey, we'll have a bonus episode. Did you see it? Bonus episode diving into the Kansas City Mavericks, who have a 2-1 lead in their first round series against the Tulsa Oilers. I will be going to the game once again tonight. And I did hear from Tato Had from Tuesday. So go check out that bonus episode. But for right now, I want to take you back to the Valley. Your Coachella Valley Firebirds get a freaking awesome game 1 win, lead the series 1-0 after a 4-3 triple overtime winner. This game was so long. That you had young fans This is a photo that we got from USA Today. I mean, this young guy, I think this was maybe the first or second overtime, but young fans tired, had to bring out the folding chairs to make an impromptu bed. But the Firebirds get it done. they get the win, and they are up 1-0 on the Calgary Wranglers. I said the other day that this was going to be a tough series, and we see it right here in this game. If you look at and again, if you've already listened to the bonus episode, or if you're going to listen to the bonus episode, I'm going to talk about special teams here. Coachella Valley 0 for 7. 0 for 7 on the power play. Calgary 0 for 3. So on the plus side for your Coachella Valley Firebirds, they were perfect on the penalty kill. But you'll hear from Tato Hat, if you listen to the bonus episode, that sometimes you also have to take into context momentum. So, I was only able to see highlights of this game, didn't watch it myself. And I mean, listen, I might have to wait over the weekend, right, to carve out enough time to watch this en toto. But speaking of Toto, not really, Coco gets the win. 102 minutes, 39 shots faced, 36 saved. We'll take it. Your hero of the night, Mitchell Stevens. He got 2 goals, including the game winner. John Hayden opened up the scoring. And your Coachella Valley Firebirds, they actually had the first 3 goals, and then you had 3 unanswered from Calgary. That's another thing. It's something that, unfortunately, as I continue to cover the Mavericks, as I cover the Firebirds, and of course the Kraken, protecting a lead is something that we got to keep an eye on, but they get the win. So I don't want to be too critical just looking at the box score again. I want to look at some things in the neutral zone, in the defensive zone. I really like to break those things down. Haven't gotten a chance to do this because I've been keeping up with the Mavericks. But what a freaking game. The stamina. How will that impact game 2? Well, I guess we're just going to have to see. Your Coachella Valley Firebirds are going to host once again the Wranglers for game 2 on Saturday. So a nice little break here. The first 3 games at Acrisure Arena. And so we'll see what the Firebirds can get done here. But taking on the Wranglers on Saturday, so we'll have plenty of time to talk about that a little bit on Friday's episode. Might do a little bonus episode for you once I get to see these games. But the round 1 is best of 3. So Firebirds here, good on them to get game 1, and they want to clean this up. But this is going to be a tough battle. This is teams 4 and 5 in the standings, so it's not going to be easy. Round 2 of the Calder Cup playoffs is best of 5, as is round 3. Rounds 4 and 5, best of 7. But Coachella Valley has to get another win, and they'll look to do that on Saturday. Coming up on today's episode, want to close it out by talking about World Championships. Before Dan Bilesma was fired, he was asked about World Championships. He did say that a few players will have an opportunity to play, but that those rosters were in the process of being announced, and he didn't want to, say anything publicly until the players had an opportunity to hear from their federations. We did hear in the press conference, that super weird one that I talked a lot about in the first segment, that we are expecting some representation across a few teams, not just the United States, but we're going to talk about Team USA, where you're going to see 2 of your very own Seattle Kraken. One who also played for the Firebirds and the Checkers, as a matter of fact. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. This episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Yeah, that used to be me, but not anymore, because now I use Monarch Money. Monarch Money is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. At least that's what it is for me, because Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. That is apropos. That is what I love about this app. The dashboard is fantastic, easy to understand. You have certain things that you can check off that you did to just have the most robust and complete set of information. It's an all-in-one convenience. You don't have to juggle multiple apps, which I'm actually still doing for my personal finances. So I'm going to move everything over to Monarch Money. But for my business accounts, I have everything in one place. It makes everything as smooth as it's ever been. And now I am ready to not just manage my money, but really be able to make my money, make some money. Okay. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On NHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On NHL for half off your first year. Kraken fans, if you weren't watching World Championships for the men, because we just had Women's Worlds, the United States beats Canada in overtime because that's what we do. Now you have a reason. Well, two reasons. Maddie Beniers and Joey Decord named to the IIHF men's national team, or I should say the USA Hockey men's national team ahead of the IIHF Men's World Championships May 9th, day after my birthday, to the 25th. It's going to be in Denmark and Stockholm, Sweden. So the later rounds will move to Sweden. The first 18 players have been announced, and two of our Kraken a part of that. Maddie Beniers has represented the United States at World Championships and at the Olympics. I was there in Beijing. And so he's one of 4 top 10 picks, along with Logan Cooley, Gauthier, and Clayton Keller to be on this team. He is Maddie Beniers, one of 11 players that have previously been a part of Team USA at Men's World Championships, along with Connor Garland, Gauthier, Keller, Michael Kesselring, Andrew Peak, Drew O'Connor, Jeremy Swayman, Tig Thompson, Alex Vlasic. Maddie Beniers, also one of 10 players that have competed with USA Hockey's National Team Development Program, basically all the other names. There's only 2 players that have not competed in at least one IIHF championship, and one of those is our guy, Joey Decord. Joey. And so that's exciting. As far as the states, 13 different states, Massachusetts and Minnesota, both with 3, including 2 of our guys from Massachusetts. Then Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Missouri, Illinois, Florida, Connecticut, Arizona, and Alaska all have 1 player competing. So again, things are going to get started. There's actually a pre-tournament game against Germany, and then prelims start against Denmark on May 9th. As I mentioned, they're also going to be playing Hungary, Switzerland, Norway, and Germany, as well as Kazakhstan and Czechia in the prelim rounds. The quarterfinals will start May 22nd, semifinals May 24th, and your medal games will be the next day on May 25th. You can catch the action on NHL.com. I will definitely be keeping eyes on this. It will be around my birthday, so I'll be definitely sipping champagne just before that. So maybe I'll get into the second prelim game. But jokes aside, I love international hockey. As someone who is expecting, I am going to be going to Milano Cortina. I'm trying to close out something I'm actually really excited about with an additional opportunity at the Olympics. So fingers crossed I can close the deal there. But I'm super excited to see Joey Decord and Maddie Beniers. And I want to see Maddie. I'm glad to see him with Team USA again. You know, he never got to go to that all-star game. I was at that one in Florida, had a great time with Armando Velez. We were at all the parties. Oh, yeah, and the hockey was great too, I guess. Anyway, I went up to Toronto for all-star. Oliver Bjorkstrand, he didn't play in, or he wasn't available for game 2, I think. Bjorkstrand or round one, I should say, against the Panthers. Bjorky, wish him well. But I don't know. I'm super excited. Hopefully that that will pan out and I can tell you all about it on Locked On Kraken. But hey, we have a bonus episode if you want to hear more about the Kansas City Mavericks. Yes, they are also having some power play woes, but at least they have I think a good outlook on it. You can hear from Tato Had on our bonus episode for today, Thursday, ahead of tonight's game against the Tulsa Oilers. Yes, I live in Tulsa, but I don't root for Tulsa. I root for, well, the Mavericks and the Firebirds and, of course, the Kraken. Hey, be kind to yourself. I'm rooting for you, but you got to be kind to yourself. I tell myself that all the time. And be kind to others. We are going to hold fast. We're going to stay true. And we're going to root for all of our pipeline, the Mavericks, the Firebirds, and, of course, we say loud and proud always, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode or the bonus episode. Go check out the bonus episode. Peace out, everybody.